Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of Inspirations by Dr. Gail. Today my topic is You Can't Be Big If Little Got You, the truth about success. This is part 6 of the series titled Creating Your Roadmap to Success. From 1996 to 1998, I was a doctoral student at a prestigious university in Southern California. In addition to taking numerous classes, I had to learn how to conduct research. The final phases of my doctoral studies required me to conduct a large research project, explain my research project in a written dissertation, and defend this dissertation through an oral examination by my dissertation committee. The title of my dissertation was Predictors of Resilience in African American Adults. My main goal was to answer the following question. Why do some African Americans who experience adversity during childhood become successful adults, yet others don't? In order to get the answers, I conducted a 2-part study. I collected questionnaire data from 118 African American college students, and I conducted interviews with 12 highly successful African American adults. The interviewees included a corporate attorney for one of the largest law firms in Los Angeles, a female television producer, a social worker, the vice president of a famous corporation, an elementary school principal, and several teachers. All of the interviewees had experienced one or more major problems during childhood. For example, when he was 12 years old, one male interviewee started losing his hearing. By the time he was 15, he was completely deaf. Prior to this time, he had been very popular and loved to play basketball. But because of his hearing loss, all of his former friends turned against him and wouldn't let him play basketball with them anymore. In spite of this, he became a teacher at a school for the deaf. During childhood, some of the other interviewees were bullied, extremely low income, had health problems, had a mentally ill parent, had a parent who was an alcoholic or drug addict, or lost a parent through death. Among the 118 college students who completed the questionnaire that I developed, the most common problem that they experienced as they were growing up was racism or some other form of discrimination. In terms of the factors contributing to their success, the interviewees and college students said as they were growing up, they relied on 5 main strategies: prayer, hard work, dreaming of having a better life, relying on at least one role model, and reading a lot in their spare time. After designing my research project, collecting data, analyzing the data, writing the dissertation, proofreading it numerous times, and asking others to proofread it, I submitted it to my dissertation committee. Once I made the revisions that they requested and resubmitted my dissertation to the committee, I was ready for the final phase of my doctoral studies, defending my dissertation. I'm thankful to God that prior to this time, my dissertation chair, Dr. Lourdes Arguelles, and committee members, Dr. David Drew and Dr. Bruce Matsui, had been 100% supportive at every stage of my doctoral studies. So on that day in January 1998, when I stood before the committee to defend my dissertation, they didn't disappoint me. They were encouraging, pleasant, and gave me great feedback. At the end of my oral defense, when they congratulated me and called me Dr. Thompson, one of my biggest dreams came true. An added blessing was that because of Dr. Arguelles, I ended up earning the Dissertation of the Year award. Since then, Dr. Arguelles and Dr. David Drew have played instrumental roles in my professional success, especially during my years as an assistant, associate, full, and endowed professor. Today, I consider them to be among my biggest supporters. After my successful dissertation defense, I had to prepare for graduation. This included getting measured for my cap and gown. Instead of the traditional graduation cap, Recipients of doctorates get to wear what is called an 8-sided doctoral tam. When I went to the university bookstore to be measured, the woman in charge of taking my measurements was polite and friendly. However, when she began to measure my head for that 8-sided doctoral tam, she made a statement that I've never forgotten. "Come back in the future so that I can measure how big your head has gotten," she said, "because I've never met a person who wore this cap who didn't get a big head." Although I was surprised, I quickly assured her that I would never get a big head and that I would prove her wrong. Since then, I've tried very hard to remain humble, to never forget where I came from, and to never let having a PhD fool me into thinking that I'm superior to anyone else. On a daily basis, I try very hard to treat others fairly and respectfully, regardless of their education level, economic status, racial background, or any other factor. And I can interact with anyone because I believe that every single person can teach me something that I don't know. Having a PhD means that I went to school for a long time, but it doesn't mean that I know everything. But the main reason why I try not to get a big head is my core beliefs about success and my purpose on this earth. I explain these 5 core beliefs in Dear Beautiful, a self-empowerment book for Black women, as number 1, God created me in His image, so I'm not a mistake. Number 2, God created me for a reason, which is to use my gifts, talents, especially my writing, drawing, and speaking abilities, to empower others. Number 3, I'm God's child. Number 4, I should treat others with the dignity and respect with which I want to be treated. Number 5, I'm not superior or inferior to anyone on this earth, regardless of the amount of money or education people have, how they look, or the type of position or job that they have. As I stated previously, the title of this episode is You Can't Be Big If Little Got You. This is actually a famous quote that has been passed down in some African American circles for many generations. Years ago, I heard Bishop J.W. Walker of Nashville, Tennessee, say it during a sermon. When I was a university professor, one of my elderly African American male students quoted it in class. Here's my interpretation of the quote, "You can't be big if little got you." The word big means that you can use your education, position, and power in ways that will have a positive effect on others. Little means that you can have a big title and lots of degrees, but if you have faulty core beliefs about your position and power, you can become arrogant and cause great harm to others. Unfortunately, I've met many highly educated and highly successful individuals who fit into the second category. In other words, instead of using their power in positive ways, many of them go into positions of leadership and abuse and discriminate against others who are in less powerful positions. Furthermore, researchers have found that workplace abuse and discrimination are very common. According to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, federal laws prohibit workplace discrimination and are enforced by the EEOC. In spite of this, each year thousands of U.S. employees file claims with the EEOC reporting that they've been discriminated against at work by a supervisor or other co-worker. The EEOC revealed that the main categories of workplace discrimination are based on age, disability, equal pay compensation, genetic information, which includes issues such as an employee's medical history, harassment, national origin, pregnancy, race, color, religion, retaliation, sex, or sexual harassment. There are also many negative effects of being in an environment that is headed by an abusive leader, including burnout, physical and psychological health problems, and low productivity. Like the thousands of individuals who have worked for abusive leaders, I've had many personal experiences with toxic leaders. For example, When I was an assistant professor at one university, my department chair, who happened to be an African American woman, had a history of harassing female professors. Shortly after I was hired, she warned me to keep my mouth shut in meetings because no one wanted to hear my opinions. She also told me that the heels on my shoes were too high, would go into my locked office and the office of a Latina female professor and turn our family photos upside down, as well as go through our belongings. She told me that I shouldn't even have family photos in my office and constantly warned us that we better be careful if we wanted to earn tenure. It seemed like this department chair had nothing else to do besides think of ways to make our lives and jobs more difficult. Working at that university became so stressful that I would often sit in my car and cry before entering the building in which my office was located. Another female who was harassed by this department chair would have constant nosebleeds at work, and the Latina professor's hair started to fall out from the stress. This department chair clearly believed that instead of being supportive, her job was to bully us and create a climate of fear. She was a great example of the quote, "You can't be big if little got you." Being an adult in a hostile work environment is bad, but adults who are mistreated have options such as searching for a new job or filing a claim with the EEOC or both that they can consider. But what about vulnerable populations such as children who may not know what to do when they're mistreated by an adult who has power over them? In several of my books, I've written about the issue of effective and ineffective leaders and abuses of power. I've also talked extensively about the impact that education leaders can have, for better or for worse, on students and teachers. By education leaders, I mean district level, school level, and classroom level leaders or teachers in public and private schools. Here's an example from my book, The Power of One: How You Can Help or Harm African American Students, which was nominated for a national award. Many years ago, a stranger whom I refer to as Nathan left a voicemail on my university office telephone. In his voicemail, he said that he'd seen me on TV and wanted to share a story with me. Nathan and his brother grew up in Chicago. Their father, who married their mother and had children late in life, was a surgeon. He was committed to helping poor African Americans in Chicago receive good health care. According to Nathan, Dad was a humanitarian. He gave free health care. He didn't care about money. All he cared about was people. Because Nathan's father cared more about helping low-income people than becoming wealthy, he and his family, which included his wife, a registered pediatric nurse, and his 2 sons, remained on the south side of Chicago throughout his entire medical career. Nathan's parents instilled a strong love for learning in their 2 sons. In addition to teaching Nathan how to read before he started school, Nathan's father, who spoke 8 different languages, also taught him how to speak several languages, starting when Nathan was 4 years old. Because Nathan's mother was a devout Catholic, she and her husband believed that their children would get a better education in Catholic schools. So when Nathan, a little black boy from the south side of Chicago, started elementary school, he was excited about learning more than he already knew. But almost from the beginning, problems surfaced. He attended a predominantly black Catholic elementary school, and all of his teachers were white priests and nuns, who ironically were called Sisters of Mercy. According to Nathan, it started in primary school with all these nuns and priests who were jealous of my dad. The "it" that he was referring to was racism. They didn't care about us, Nathan remarked, but we were probably getting a better education than the black kids in the public school system. In spite of this, Nathan continued to earn good grades. But when he reached middle school, the racism intensified, and what happened during 8th grade changed the course of his life. At the predominantly black Catholic school that Nathan attended, during 8th grade, the students were segregated by gender. Therefore, on the first day of school, Nathan found himself in a classroom full of black boys like himself. On top of this, he learned that he and his classmates would only have one teacher that year. Sister Mary P. In my book, I chose not to use Sister Mary P.'s last name. Sister Mary P. was a nun who taught all of the subjects. On the first day of school, she introduced herself to the class in a way that Nathan would never forget. I know a lot of you. I know you are low-life people. According to Nathan, Sister Mary P. looked at us like we were all sons of criminals or like we didn't know who our dads were. This is how she introduced herself to us. It went downhill from there. She would tell us that we were all low-lifes. So when she found out my daddy was a doctor, that killed her. Not to mention that daddy had light skin and blue eyes. In spite of this frightening introduction by Sister Mary P., Nathan continued to be the child that his parents had trained him to be, a student who was serious about his education and who loved to learn. But it was this very attitude about learning that would soon contribute to his destruction as a student. The incident that made Nathan utter loud, gut-wrenching sobs during our telephone conversation occurred on the day before his 8th grade class was scheduled to take a National Catholic High School entrance exam. This test would determine which high school he would be able to attend the following year. After finishing his classwork early, Nathan began to read ahead in one of his textbooks. I just loved learning. I was an overachiever, he explained. I was so ahead of the class, but Sister Mary P. didn't like any one of us. She didn't appreciate my reading ahead in the textbook. That day, as Nathan sat at his desk, silently reading the textbook, he wasn't prepared for what happened next. Sister Mary P. walked over to him and declared, "So you went ahead." Then, using one of her hands, she backhanded him in his left eye. She was angry, Nathan explained, because I went ahead in my lessons. Although he was shocked, Nathan shouldn't have been, for this was actually the second time that Sister Mary P. had hit him in the same eye. Thank God she didn't hit me with an object, he told me. But she would use objects to hit us with, paddles with holes in them. She would use sticks, pointer sticks, that she would often beat us with. She would also use her fist. She was physically abusive. Later that day, when Nathan arrived home, his eye was swollen shut. He told his parents what happened, and they were so passive, he said, they didn't essentially say anything. I was made to go to school the following morning with one eye shut. During that important exam that would determine which high school he could attend, Nathan struggled to read the questions. Although he had studied, because he could only see out of one eye, it took longer for him to complete the exam. I did just enough to pass, he remarked sadly, but I could have done better. I had trouble seeing. I had one eye swollen shut. I was so badly injured that I couldn't see out of it the next morning. I passed the exam, but scored low, not because I didn't know the answers, but because I was so slow in completing the exam with one eye shut. What Sister Mary P. did on that day when she backhanded Nathan for the second time left him partially blind for the rest of his life. But she had also damaged his self-esteem to the point that he went from being a high-achieving student who loved learning to a student who began to hate the education system. They destroyed my desire to learn in their schools, he cried. This nun was absolutely merciless. It's ironic that they're called the Sisters of Mercy. The younger you are when they get you, the more they influence you in a bad or a good way. The last straw occurred when Nathan was 14 years old, during the summer before he became a high school sophomore. He had already become disillusioned with the Catholic school system, and on top of this, he was getting very little sleep at night. Because his father was elderly, Nathan and his brother accompanied him on his house calls. We often went on my dad's rounds with him late at night, so we never got any sleep, he said. One night that summer, thieves attacked Nathan's father during a house call. Desperate people do desperate things, Nathan explained sadly. The robbers beat him to a pulp. He was so old. Dad was like 75. They crushed his skull and everything. Although Nathan's father tried to continue practicing medicine, he never fully recovered from that brutal beating. In fact, When Nathan arrived home from high school each day, things had worsened to the point that he would have to change his father's diapers. By his sophomore year of high school, Nathan had basically given up on school. "I had to change diapers on Daddy," he stated. "This is what I couldn't share with my high school peers, yet I had to keep up with them academically." Regarding school, he explained, "I felt that I just didn't care. My heart wasn't there. All the while I'm changing diapers, Dad was just getting worse." Nathan eventually graduated from high school. Although he attended college, he had lost his motivation to succeed academically. Before long, he entered the world of drugs, as he called it, and just drifted from one college to another. "I didn't obtain any degree," he stated. For years, he smoked marijuana and was hooked on cocaine. However, in 1989, after deciding to change his life, he got off of drugs. At the time when he shared his story with me, he was the father and sole caretaker of his physically disabled adult daughter, whose mother had died of cancer when the child was 11 years old. "I encourage her to do more with her life," Nathan said of his daughter. And although Nathan insists that he still despises the education system, his dream of earning a college degree, a dream that his parents instilled in him before he even began attending kindergarten, has not died. "The only thing is," he said as he burst into tears again, "they destroyed my desire to learn in their system. They destroyed my desire to learn in their schools, and I'm trying to recover from that. It's hard for me to be in class and take notes." Despite the fact that Nathan isn't sure if his dream of earning a college degree will ever come true, the thirst for knowledge and love of learning that his parents gave to him remain with him. "I keep wanting to learn," he said. "I keep wanting to learn. I'm an avid reader. It's in my DNA. I can't help it. The nuns and priests couldn't kill that." Both examples that I shared involved individuals who had big titles and important positions, but because of faulty core beliefs about success and power and unaddressed issues such as insecurity, racism, bigotry, unconscious biases, jealousy, arrogance, misogyny, etc., they misused their power. Only God knows how many females and untenured professors my former department chair harmed. And only God knows how many African American students that Sister Mary P. and other racist nuns and priests at the Catholic schools that Nathan and his brother attended damaged. As I stated in a previous episode, none of us is perfect. We all have issues. I have issues, you have issues, and all of God's children have issues. But here's the main point that I hope you'll take away from today's episode. In order to use our education, titles, positions, and power to make a positive impact on others, our roadmap to success must include a willingness to identify and address any faulty core beliefs that can cause us to mistreat and look down on others. Stay tuned for this week's Personal Empowerment Challenge. This week's Personal Empowerment Challenge consists of 11 exercises. In your Personal Empowerment notebook or journal, please do the following. Number 1, explain your beliefs about people who have less education than you. Number 2, explain your beliefs about people who have more education than you. Number 3, explain your beliefs about people who have bigger titles and positions than yours. Number 4, explain your beliefs about people who have less power and influence than you. Number 5, what would the people in your life who have less education and power than you say about your impact on them? For example, do they feel better or worse after being in your presence? Number 6, in one sentence, explain how you're using your education, position, and power to improve the lives of children, teens, or other adults. Number 7 is from a previous episode. Explain what you would want the people in your life who have less education and power than you to say about you at your funeral. Number 8, review your answers and explain what they reveal about your beliefs and other personal issues that can cause you to live below your potential in terms of the impact that you can make through your position, power, and education. Number 9, develop an action plan to address any issues that surfaced. Also include an explanation of how you'll hold yourself accountable for addressing any potential roadblocks that surfaced. Number 10, if you're in an abusive and toxic workplace, develop a list of strategies to protect yourself and determine how you'll move forward. The following online articles may be helpful to you. Is your boss a true bully? How to tell and what to do about it. This was published by Forbes. When your boss is a bully or worse, which was published by Psychology Today. Is your boss a bully? New research says that there's a surprising reason why. That was published by Entrepreneur. Battling Bullying in the Workplace, which was published by U.S. News. Job Burnout, How to Spot It and Take Action, which was published by the Mayo Clinic. First Aid for Teacher Burnout, a book that I've mentioned before, which was written by my good friend, Dr. Jenny Grant Rankin, who is also the wife of Lane Rankin, who I featured in last week's episode. Number 11, if you're an employer or in any position of leadership in the workplace, read the executive summary and recommendations of the EEOC's Select Task Force on the Study of Harassment in the Workplace. There's some great strategies there. You can also learn about laws and then ways to empower employees. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you'll tune in next week to hear Money, 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 Money. Money. Examining your beliefs about money and success. This is part 7 of the series Creating Your Roadmap to Success. For more information about Inspirations by Gail, LLC, please visit my website, www.drgailthompson.com. That's www.drgailthompson.com. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this podcast and hit the like button through my YouTube channel, Inspirations by Gail. If you're interested in the theme music for this podcast, please check out music by Aaron Nimbus on iTunes. In the meantime, please remember this. In order to use our education, titles, positions, and power to make a positive impact on others, our roadmap to success must include a willingness to identify and address any faulty core beliefs that can cause us to mistreat and look down on others. Until next time, hugs and blessings. I'm Dr. Gail L. Thompson.